Venri Chapter 29. Garrus. Morin was trying to learn how to cook Turian food, and he didn't have the heart to tell her that she was poisoning him. Maybe she'd get better at it. Maybe she'd kill him before the Reapers did. Maybe Dr. Shakwas would run out of the poisoning countermeasures she provided to him. Maybe he'd have to resort to stealing them directly or trying the black market. He supposed much of the issue was that Morim couldn't actually taste it herself. She could only follow directions from recipes. She might be a decent human cook, but the same methods applied to Turian food altered chemical composition drastically. Much of it was a process of air curing and precise temperature ranges along with pH balance. Her methods tended to result in missing those subtleties. Unfortunately, being on the Citadel, there was a particularly virulent form of fungus that colonized the surface of air-cured food held at the wrong temperatures. Granted, she was used to food changing color drastically. From his experiences with Caden Alenko, that meant fire and black. He tended to slice off the tainted aspects. It didn't always work as a poisoning deterrent. When she called him to the table and away from his datapad, his stomach was beginning to preemptively protest. The smells of human food overwhelmed the scent of Turian food, so he had no idea what he was in for. He stopped and stared at a traditionally presented plate of galnus. He looked at her. She was sitting and spreading a napkin over her lap. Then he looked back at the galnus. Beautifully colored, glistening spears of Turian fish in what looked like the perfect glaze. His eyes narrowed, and he opened his mouth and then closed it. She sliced into her steak and blandly chewed a bite, making eye contact with him, daring him to say something. He sat. He took a deep breath, sensing danger. From the food or her, he had no idea. His stomach turned traitor, and he eyed one of his favorite dishes with suspicion. Something wrong? That's galnus. Really? Is that what it's called? She sliced another piece of steak, chewed slowly and swallowed, then took a sip of wine, holding his gaze with hers the entire time. He sat back and crossed his arms. Trap. Her eyebrows raised. What? Trap. She shook her head. I assure you, it's galnus. He pulled a pill from his belt and downed it, and then said, Hell, and took a bite. She continued to watch her own arms crossing. I told you. Galnus. He chewed. So you did, and so it is, and so how the hell? She smiled. I had some help. Help as in you ordered it from a restaurant? She shook her head. Not quite. He took another bite. Not quite how? She began to eat again. I had help. Tally. And Kasumi, and Bailey. He chewed and looked at her, perplexed. Can any of those three make galnus? No, but I tried to cook for Tally. He sputtered and coughed. You cooked for Tally? Is she still alive? She glared. He laughed. No, but she did tell me that you shouldn't be. Why didn't you tell me? He waved his skewer at her. Oh, no. Now I need to hear about Kasumi and Bailey. She looked skewers back at him. You enjoyed watching me fumble? He leaned over the table. I really enjoyed the poisoning aspect. I was wondering how long it would take you before loving me beyond reason was going to get me permanently hooked to a med unit. I was considering getting a detox pump implanted. Why didn't you tell me? I don't know. It's rare to see someone so competent try so hard and get it so very wrong. I think the poisoning was worth it to see that side of you. It's like watching you dance. She closed her eyes. Tell me the sex isn't the same. Please, just tell me that. Lie, if you have to. No, the sex isn't the same, and don't change the subject. Kasumi and Bailey. Spill. After Tally, I figured if I couldn't get the truth from you, I could get it in other ways. I asked Kasumi to pull some CSEC files and do some research for me. How so? CSEC orders food. Those records are expensed. We did some research on orders sent to your precinct and then extrapolated which were yours. Special attention paid to occasions like your promotions or birthday. Turians don't have birthdays. Yeah, we figured that out. But you did get promoted and had celebrations for busts often. And Galnus became your target? Then I asked Bailey to tell me who was the best chef on the Citadel that could make Galnus. He asked around, and I got some lessons. He crossed a hand over his chest and tilted at the waist in a brief bow. I am forever in Bailey's debt. Dr. Shakwas will be glad to hear it. Garrus, you told me once I would never be able to make you uncomfortable. I underestimated your enthusiasm and incompetence. I need to know you'll tell me when something's wrong. He shrugged. I complained when you had no sense of direction. Nothing changed. We're still lost. All the time. She bit her lip. Well, yes, but there's little I can do about that. Garrus threw up his hands. There are things called maps, Morim. Or you could ask me while I'm laughing. And then there's your driving in the Mako. And the Hammerhead. Did you enjoy making the tech crews clean out vomit from the interior? So you're saying I'm difficult? He nodded. I'm saying you're difficult. I need to know you'll tell me when something's wrong. You told me about those, I just didn't do anything about it. His eyes flared open wide. Wrong? So much is wrong. So much has been wrong for so long that a little bit of well-meaning poisoning doesn't seem like that big of a deal if I can spend time with you. Morim, we kill things that call you by name. Big things. A disabled Reaper at your feet had a conversation with you. The reality of the threat and the fear became apparent to both of them, and the familiar field of humor took its shape. But the undercurrent was still churning. He abandoned his plate and stepped over to her, offering her his hand. She took it, and he pulled her into his arms. I rarely get threatened by name. Oh, I heard a lot of swearing and Archangel before gurgling and death rattles once. Seeing you like this, very domestic, it makes me think. Remember what you'd said once about me having an ideal life? Without you, what it would be like? 7 children, I believe. And you said that many children were excessive. He nuzzled at her neck. You didn't imagine me at war. You didn't imagine me in anything but a normal life. Is that what you want, Venri? That normal life that you wanted to get for me? Was it because you couldn't get it for yourself? I haven't even seen normal, ever. It's been a fantasy. It certainly doesn't seem possible or practical. You build families wherever you go. and then you see them die or move on to different fights. Would you like to have a family? Children? If I could give them to you? The look in her eyes was so pained and filled with longing that he was shocked. She looked at him for a long moment but didn't speak. No doubts as to what she wanted. He hadn't thought about children before now. He had no ready answer except that she should know he'd get anything he could for her. She dropped her head and let it rest on his chest, and his arms tightened around her. We could start by adopting Jack. We could always let Dr. Shakwas take samples. I promise, I won't let you poison our children, Venri. All was right with the world. Shepard. Diana had earned her interview, mostly by not disclosing what she already knew. Moram sat still for it, finally. Commander Shepard, there are questions regarding your command style, particularly since you seem to favor your husband. You take him with you on every mission, and you provided for the Krogan to aid Palaven, instead of the Krogan aiding Earth. You had the power to make that choice, and it cost human lives. I don't make choices in a vacuum. Diplomacy and strategy dictate that everyone has a voice, and that assets must be allocated for the ultimate greater good. I am a biotic. My bondmate is a sniper. Tactically, we're an effective team. We've done it this way for years, for good reasons. Morale, trust, and strategy included. We've spent the most time together, and we've developed the most teamwork. If it weren't working, I'd take a harder look at that. You can trust me when I say it is working. Don't you worry that you will be perceived as weak, or that he'd be considered a weakness of yours? Would you prefer that I do my job because I enjoy murdering people? I do my job because I have something to live for that is worth the fight. Traditionally, military practice has sundered soldiers from their family, friends, lovers, taken them from emotional support in order to metaphorically harden them or promote unit cohesion. That makes it easier for command, not for the soldier. We shouldn't make these choices based on what is easy, but what is right. Hard can also equal brittle. Certainly, it equates to an inability to be flexible. I don't think that what has been done in the past was a wise choice. Humans could learn something from Turians and their acceptance of being warriors for a lifetime, what that means for individual needs. We all need something to fight for, not just against. What I do works because I don't care if I'm perceived as weak. I only care if I actually am weak. If it is required that I give everything for this fight, it's best that I be a whole person, and that I have a true reason to survive, a vision of life beyond conflict. I can't live just to win a fight. No soldier should. That means that when the fight is over, their motivation is over, and they either accept dying in that fight, or they find a new fight. I've seen too many soldiers that have given up love as a weakness. I saw that it cut them off from their reasons to live, and at a certain point, they no longer cared whether or not they lived. If you choose to fight, you should choose to protect the innocent, even the innocence in yourself. You should defend ideals, particularly your own. That keeps soldiers whole and keeps them humble. I want to live. I want Garrus to live. We want to live past this fight, not for it. We're the people you need in the fight, because when the fight is over, we will be there after the last battle with our energies redirected toward rebuilding, not directed toward the next war. Motivations matter. My advice to your viewers would be to find something or someone to love, and allow that experience to guide their actions. I know many people are losing what they love, but find the courage to be guided by love and not by loss. Honor what other people love. This is how we live, and not just survive. Timeline. Priority. Thessia. Kai Lang would have liked to infuriate her, so she wouldn't be infuriated. Nice how being contrary worked out for her. He'd said, "Your friend Thane died like a coward." Being reminded of Thane had brought her not fury, but a reflection of Thane's philosophy and peace, blended with his accompanying lethality. She imagined Thane's response to that might be, "His words have no meaning, Siha. They are a dry, cold wind seeking to draw the warmth from you. Deny him that." Yes, it was her philosophy in Thane's voice and words, part of why they'd gotten along so well, she and Thane. Her conversations with Kai Lang had induced an odd pity in her, though he didn't show clear signs of indoctrination. She imagined him soon with electric blue eyes under the mask, like Garrus's eyes in her dreams. And that checked her fury. If Kai Lang had had a soul once, it had been vivisected from him, and his humanity had been leached drop by drop until all that was left of him was a weapon pointed at her by other forces. She was still going to kill him, just not today. There were still tomorrows to be had. Thessia had been a horror and a setback, but for some reason that steadied her, as though some shoe dropping somewhere had been heard, and she could stop worrying about when it would. Now. It drops now. Setbacks were part of her business, and she had everything she needed to find Kai Lang and the elusive men and take them out of the overarching equation of future war. Garrus and Liara had gone with her and were still alive. She hadn't lost anybody. They were getting so very close to the end. They had enough resources to finish the Crucible, whatever the hell that was. She reclined on their bed, looking through the skylight at the curls of Mass Effect energy and the stars streaming by. Thinking of the war table, at the number of assets she had pulled together, thinking of all the people working, bent toward the goal of defeating the Reapers, that calmed her. She wasn't alone in this. She'd had to steal a ship to go after Saren. She'd had to die and been a pirate to go after the Collectors. Now she was able to be wholly herself, leading not just a ship, not just an army. Ships, plural. Armies, plural. She'd achieved different species working together. It was a dream come true in the middle of a nightmare. Her time with Garrus, her friendships, her bonds with people across worlds and cultures, these were things she treasured. Despair had gnawed at her in the past. Fear had haunted her sleep. She wouldn't allow her blessings to disappear or go unappreciated due to momentary nihilism. Each race was deeply flawed, each of the cultures she was drawing together. She'd learned the Solarians were going to uplift the Yag. The Turians had planted a bomb on Tuchanka. The Asari had been keeping Prothean tech to themselves. All of those choices had been made through fear, and she had to make sure she didn't fall prey to fear. Humans had Cerberus. She was a little out-panicked, as though the chemistry in her head for pain and horror and worry had been exhausted, that she'd run out of whatever molecule could be used to make her insane. At least temporarily. At least right now. She was nearing the end. She wanted to sit and watch the stars. She should plan, but right now she wanted to see Garrus. Talk to him. Normally she wouldn't interrupt him, but this wasn't normally, and all her usual excuses about not interfering with his daily work seemed silly. She pinged him from her Omnitool. Hey, up in the cabin, wondering if you could pull yourself away from whatever it is you're doing? No rush, no emergency. I just want to see you because I want to see you. I'm on my way. She'd never asked that of him before, not without making awkward, qualifying excuses first. Unless you're busy. Of course he's busy. He's trying to save everyone he can. I want to be saved. He's trying that, too. He arrived quickly, stepped over to the bed, looked down at her, and she kept watching the stars. She told him, I'm watching the stars. He smiled at her. I can see that. I wanted to hold your hand and watch the stars. In answer, he slid into the bed next to her, reached out his hand, enveloped her fingers in his. So that was it then. Simple. She'd asked something unreasonable and unscheduled, and he just did it because he could. All those times she could have had this, had him near, when all she needed to do was to follow through on asking about what she wanted. So many lost opportunities. If I could go back in time, to that night before Saren, I'd like to build a fort in the Mako out of pillows and blankets and stay up all night with you. See if I could finagle falling asleep in your arms. He stretched and settled back on his pillow, willing to accept her mood and her request and match the sense of timeless ease. You're pretty persuasive. I was impressionable. Then we could kill Saren and do something else with those 2 years before uniting the Turians and the Alliance when we blazed in and saved the human colonists. I've always wanted to learn to paint. She nodded at him. Painting is good. I could have learned to cook Turian food by now. Why is that important? You can't even eat it. She shrugged. It's an old Earth custom. Historically, men had the jobs and women watched the home. When a couple was courting, a man would take a woman out to a restaurant, and the woman would reciprocate by making a home-cooked meal. I had no idea. I know you had no idea. It was just a thought. Not all my thoughts work out all that well, but I meant well. Sorry about the poisoning. Well, if you started courting me after you already were bonded, that's... I don't know what that is, but thank you for thinking of it, for trying. You're welcome. This whole us thing is not easy, but it's worth it. She didn't want to talk about practicalities, but they were getting inside her head. We need to take another trip to Despoina. We've almost got all our fallbacks in place. If we're separated, we can find each other. We can meet in the one place where nothing sentient will threaten us. He squeezed her fingers. If we get separated, yeah. We have caches of gear and identities all over the place now. You won't lose me again and have to meet me as Archangel. And you have your new alias. What was it again? She smiled. Yeah, Lola Fracas. A whole bunch of ID kits. I'll have to cover my marks, and I'll be a brunette. Forgive me? Come to Despoina and you're forgiven. We have a ship, we have shuttles, we have caches and backup tech. I'd say we're prepared. We're prepared for our eventualities. They'd taken the majority of the prep that Garrus had made during her incarceration and put it to tactical use, setting up coordinates for caches in populated and unpopulated centers, ensuring foodstuffs, transportation, weapons, and identities with Liara's help. Whatever happened, and wherever they were at the end, they would be able to find each other. She'd insisted, and he'd assisted. They'd gotten the agreement of the Leviathan that their ship and their persons would go unaccosted if they did bring about the end of the Reapers. That's all they needed to do then. Their jobs. The Leviathan would take down any other ship in the vicinity, so it made it a perfect place to meet, as long as they had the courage to live up to the fact that the depths were filled with sentient monsters that could break their word and eat them for breakfast. Morim didn't think that would happen. Garrus had gone along with the plan because he didn't have a better one. There was no other place where they would be safe from Reapers or any other sentient groups or individuals that might have it in their mind to end their existence. Proximity to technology of any race capable of traveling to the Citadel would mean biometrics, detection, a trail leading to them, constantly being on their guard. It would be nice to meet on Palaven or Earth, but that was imprudent as a strategy. They were both too well known, too vulnerable to the media. Morim wanted isolation. Garrus wanted her to have what she wanted and had promised to run away with her anywhere. I think when this is over, I never want to hold another gun. I consider that a luxury. I want to sleep late. I just gave an interview where I said I'd rebuild, and I could, but I don't know if I will. I think I'm tired. I know, I'm tired. You'd also said you didn't want to be Primarch, and you'd leave that to someone who could hold a hammer. Do you still feel that way? I'd make an interesting Primarch's wife, but I could do it, if that's what you wanted. We don't know who we're going to be when this is all over. We don't even know if it's going to be over when it's over. What I do know is that I would treasure time alone with you, deciding what to do next, if there is a next, or if there's only being alone together. It is a good plan to find each other, and I want to find you. All right. I am tired of war. My main ambition at this point is to wake up next to you and see that you're with me. See that you're safe and fall back asleep knowing that you'll be there when I wake up. Whenever the hell we wake up. In the meantime, I need to be Commander Shepard, but that's what I want. I haven't lost my resolve. I just want to get past the mission to be with you. I care for everyone else, but I need some time with you. Just you. To put myself back together. Let all the things we've experienced leach out of me and sink into the ocean. Time to see if the nightmares go away, if the fear fades, if the terror subsides. Garrus shifted, set the pillows behind him, and pulled her between his thighs, leaning her back against him. His hands were gentle, wrapping one around her waist loosely, and the other one playing through her hair. Venri, whatever it is you need, whatever it is you want, I will be there for that. I believe we have done enough already to deserve the right to retire. I also believe we will not give up until it's over. When it is over, I will carry any gun that needs to be carried for you. You already know I would have happily, if not successfully, lived in a cave with you. If Despoina is to be our home for the next 100 years of our lives, if your only ambition is to watch me sleep, it would bring me joy to be there with you. I would never think less of you for not wanting to rebuild. If you wish to be a Primarch's wife, I would do that as well. But you've done enough. I've done enough. If there is peace to be had, I will be there with you. If there is no peace, because of your fears and your past rising up in your own mind, night after night, I will be there with you to forge peace together. We can sit like this, under slowly turning stars. Whatever wounds we have will have time to heal. You still worry that you will inconvenience me through spending my life with you. This is what my life is for, Venri. This is how I chose to spend it. Her muscles relaxed, tension draining out of her as he talked to her, as his hands played through her hair. You don't mind that I like hearing you say these things, even if I already know them? I happen to like your voice. I don't mind. Come to me for reassurance and moral support. Besides, how could you doubt that I would be happy having you entirely to myself and being the better shot between the two of us? I wonder who we'll be when we're not killers. His arm tightened around her waist. Wounded people. We'll find out who we are. Whoever you are, I will love you. I'm afraid of boring you. He was still for a long moment, and the vulnerability that had driven her to say that thrashed around like a fish on a dock. Saying that was foolish and selfish, and she wished she could take it back. What was it with her inability to keep things to herself when he was around? Why not just keep it damn well hidden? She used to be able to keep things to herself. Her eyes stung with tears, and she blinked them back because her own foolishness drove her to be this honest with things she had barely thought about. He made her feel safe, and when she felt safe, she made stupid mistakes with her tongue. She knew she couldn't apologize because that would just look like she was hiding it. He'd know what she said was true. The basis of this fear was that when she had been dead, he'd turned to killing, not gardening. Shepard had given him the opportunities to be exactly who he was, a honed and aimed weapon, a Turian weapon raised from birth for purpose and precision. Commander Shepard had given him opportunities to do exactly what he was great at doing, something he took massive pride in doing. His sin and his strength. pride. How would he live denied the opportunity to do something great in a day? It wasn't entirely unreasonable to think that when those opportunities were gone, he'd be like a tiger in a cage, the need to hunt pounding in his blood. When she was no longer Commander or Shepard or Pecan, when she was only either Morim or Venri, would she be enough for him? Would he pretend to paint, but really mourn the loss of his skills? The lack of purpose in his life? Would he pretend to be content to please her? She couldn't imagine Garrus being content. That was part of this whole problem. She had no idea who this man would be beyond war. She had no idea who she would be. Fuck, she hated her head sometimes. She forced herself to breathe evenly and waited for his answer. Unable to predict what he'd say except that he wouldn't speak until he was ready. Unlike her. Yes, I can see where that would be a problem. Boredom. Let me think. She wriggled to try to see his face, but he held her with his hand around her waist easily and shifted the hand on her hair to her throat, holding her back against him. You know, I never thought about that. I should have written that into the wedding contract. Missed opportunity. What happens if I get bored? Do I have some special right? Do you have a contractual obligation to keep me excited? So far it's been fine, it's true. I've had plenty of excitement. But now that you mention it... Can I apologize now? No apologies. We have to fix this. What with you being afraid? At least he didn't sound angry, and she was relieved, hoping this would slide and she could think about it later. Maybe after they weren't dead. Focus on not being dead. Saying something stupid to your husband is a habit you've gotten into. Cut yourself some slack. We should decide on a boredom anniversary. What? A boredom anniversary. I mean, being stuck with you in a small room sounds terrible. It's not as though I've spent most of my time wanting to do that for a good long while. Let's see. If you're right and you're terribly boring, and I'm climbing the walls, I'm stalking you with my rifle, looking for my glory days. You're getting creeped out because even though we have limited ammo, what if you wake up dead? I can see how this is a huge problem. I'll tell you what. Today's our first boredom anniversary. Are you bored? No, I can say I am not bored. Okay. I'm not bored. Thank the spirits, I'm not bored. If we didn't have the Reapers to keep us distracted, killing our friends, almost killing us, we might be. Dodge that bullet. Tell you what, 1 year from now, when we're on that terribly restricting vessel with nothing trying to kill us for days, possibly weeks, maybe even months, and it gets to be too much for us, one of us can bring up the concern on our boredom anniversary. We can say, all this peace, time together, and endless sex is really getting to me. No judgment. The other spouse is contractually obligated to honor the spirit of boredom day and try to fix the situation. We could go off-world, find someone to kill, come back home, get back into the terrible grind of peace, time together, and endless sex. I've never seen a Turian in captivity. I can adapt easily to being entirely useless, but I worry about you. In answer, he lifted her from his lap and set her down beside him, then deliberately lowered his body over hers, pressing patient, gentle, and tempting kisses to her lips and cheekbones. It is in your nature to worry. I know. I can see why you would worry. How it is impossible for you not to worry. We will get to those days together where we can change our natures. I have been addicted to violence, but I know better now. You have been addicted to secrets, but you know better now. We will find our way, Moram. We always have. He made her feel like it would be true, that everything would work out for the best, that she'd sent some small fears to rest. Only the huge fears remaining then. His hands, his mouth, his body reflected his patience, as though to prove he could, he would, be happy in a life without violence. They had both been appreciating each moment viscerally as a possible last. It had worked into a pattern of constant urgency. He worked the buttons and fastenings of her clothes, and when she reached to help, expecting to be pushed away as he did so often, instead he let her, moving on to the next, and they shared the task of removing clothes whole. She didn't doubt his passion, his dedication, his patience. She just doubted that she was enough. For now, she'd commit the time to him to heal until or unless she felt she wanted to get back to the world. To the world's. She did want children. She would leave those choices to that time, if and when it came. She wanted it so badly it clenched at her heart. His knees came to either side of her hips, and he put his hands on either side of her throat, tipping her face up to look at him. Remember me telling you once that I really liked that you were unreservedly, unapologetically stupid sometimes? She nodded. It's still true. You can't help it. I know you can't help it. He looked at her for a moment. Hold on. Distracted. He lowered his head and kissed her, taking long minutes, his hands on her throat, stroking, and his mouth and tongue meeting hers until she was dizzy. He pulled back and his eyes were sparked with love and mirth. Okay, that's better. He looked at her for a long while as she tried to focus. Venri, if I have the spirit's touched luck to come to Despoina with you, to hold you in my arms, to have kept you safe, to be able to keep you safe after everything we have been through, if I am that blessed and loved that you come back to me after whatever you have seen, and I'm still in your heart, I promise you, my Venri, that if I am bored with that, I will tell you. What is in my heart belongs to you, and if you want to know how I am feeling, you will ask. I don't think you fully understand that I don't love you, didn't choose you because you were exciting, or that I didn't know you were stupid. She felt so much better, always so much better when he was near. So why did you then? Why did you choose me? He pretended to consider, then looked at her and shrugged. You smell good. She said stupid things to her husband because he always made her feel better. That's why she did it. She was smiling up at him, relieved that it was okay if she wanted to make him her entire world and didn't want to admit anything else for a while, if ever. She felt that sense of selfishness slip away, joined by his selfishness. Doing it together made it selfless in a twisted way she liked sharing with him. The inside of my head is a wreck. I'm sorry. Well, who cares about your mind when I've got your body? Package deal. I'll make do. No, really, if talking isn't your strength and I get sick of it, I can always console myself by making you moan. There's no rank on that ship on Despoina. I can boss you around all day, take terrible advantage of you. I don't think you understand that bonding to you has made me more than a little crazy. It's not right, all this wanting, and you'll never be able to make a sandwich or read a book uninterrupted. You might need to be worried about being my only entertainment. There's enough metagel for an army. I love the way you plan. He kissed her again for long minutes, and her hands were clinging to his shoulders when he pulled back. So, I should ask, will I bore you? I'll let you know after I try making a few sandwiches and being disappointed. His answering, warm, dark laugh was accompanied by his cock sliding into her, bringing a deep moan from her throat. He kissed at her neck with a soft growl, and her legs wrapped around his waist, pulling her deeper inside with the angle of her hips. Reverie released the tears she'd been holding as the warmth and pleasure spread through her. She released the horrors and the worries, his hands and mouth exquisitely gentle against her skin, kissing away tears, humming a consoling note. He lifted her against him, gently and slowly, wrapping her in his embrace, her head tucked against his shoulder and his mouth at her temple. His hands were soothing, gentle, comforting. He had loving humor in his voice as he told her all the ways he loved her that had nothing to do with being a commander. She felt small, protected, and she believed him. Her flaws and foibles were seen and were part of why he loved her. Her weight was suspended in his arms, and her hopes suspended on her future with him.